TradeSquare is Australia's first business-to-business marketplace connecting people, brands and organisations into this diverse ecosystem in a unique global landscape. Through pivoting, transforming and reshaping, Australian businesses have an opportunity to create the model for the future that aligns with the world's needs and leveraging the power of a collaborative approach. Through the TradeSquare podcast, we will bring together dynamic, diverse and thought-provoking leaders from business, government and organisations to have conversations to further enable new thinking for the future. Welcome to TradeSquare. I'm Catherine Vandermeulen, and today we are focused on enabling small business growth through digital capabilities. Today's guest is Anne Nalder, the founder and the CEO of Small Business Association Australia. How are you, Anne?
I'm great. What about yourself?
Good, thank you.
And thank you for giving me this opportunity.
We are very grateful for you to share your time. So the $1 million question where we always start is, who is Anne Nalder?
Oh dear. Anne Nalder, I've been in business for over 30 years, so I think I can speak from experience in that area. And bearing in mind that my organisation, the Small Business Association of Australia, is also a business like all organisations. And of course, I'm the founder and the CEO. I'm also a widow. I've got two gorgeous grown-up adult sons and one adorable grandson. So that's me in a nutshell.
And so tell us about your calling, really, to start the Small Business Association.
Right. Look, over a lengthy period of time, I found that the failure rate of small business worried me. I saw there was no real support system in times of adversity, and I did not think there was a real voice for small business, even though we've got a lot of organisations, but there seemed to be a problem. I believe then, and I still do today, that the role of government, for example, is to provide an environment in which small business can operate. And the role of the small business owner, of course, is to keep up to date with the latest trends and compliance obligations. So once I worked out how I could make a difference, the SBAA, which is short for the Small Business Association of Australia, was founded on the 10th of April 2010. Now, today it is a leading and premier organisation in Australia, with some now international connections and growing. It is all about being to the forefront. So I pride myself about how far we have come, because it did start as a one-man band or one-woman band, whichever way you like to look at it. And today we've got a very, very large membership, and we have many industry partners, and we've got great international connections as well. So very, very proud of that achievement and working very hard towards that.
You mentioned before about small businesses having to keep up to date with obligations. And another interview I've recently done with a small business owner spoke about overwhelm. Do you think that the obligations that are needed for a small business combined with overwhelm are pushing, you mentioned obviously small businesses, the failure rate of small businesses. Do you think it's taking it too far, that, that there's too much pressure for small businesses to keep up with those obligations and then they get into a state of overwhelm?
Look, there is. I tell you what I found, which is a common thing. Now, generally speaking, and this is in many countries, not all countries, what I found with Australian small businesses, they go into small business, they're enthusiastic, they want to conquer the world, they want to grow their little business, they've got a great idea, etc. But what a lot of them do, and when I say a lot, the majority, they go in there without any real investigation or research. They go in boots and all. And a lot of them also go in with very, very little capital. This is one of the major issues it has been discovered regarding failure rates, because like anything else, if you haven't got the capital, you can't run and meet your obligations as a small business owner. And sometimes, and they also go in without a business plan. And what I do when I'm sitting face to face with a person who's really keen to go into a small business, I ask the questions. I said, have you done a business plan? And many people will balk at this and say, look, it's not necessary, but it really is, because you don't have to have a long-winded document, but you can do a few basics like projected sales, like how many things do you have to sell before you break even, for example. Have you done any surveys, or like where is your market going to be? What type of market? Where do you position yourself in the marketplace? So I say to people, you need to do a business plan. And I also say to them, if you were building a house, would you build a house without a plan? And of course, the answer is no. Well, I say the same thing is with a business. You really need to go today with a bit of a plan. You need to have a certain amount of finance behind you, because not everything goes the way you want it, especially in the first year or two. And I think you really need to have a more sophisticated attitude towards business, because today we are a global economy. So it's no longer the competition down the road or somebody like that. We've got competition in our backyard, and this applies basically globally. So you need a different approach. And generally speaking, what has happened is in the past is that people have gone in willy-nilly without too much thought, and then as they get to a certain stage, they burn out, or they run out of capital, or whatever it is, and they fail, or they just simply go out of business for other reasons. So yes, you've got to have a different approach to small business in today's environment.
And I think having that business plan, as you said, is that really wonderful guiding framework of the business. Where do you want to go? How do you want to get there? What do you want to achieve? And, I speak to a lot of businesses, and they say, well, who knows in this time of COVID, but if you don't have a guiding set of a framework of where you ultimately want to go, yes, there's always going to be hurdles along the ways, or things like COVID thrown into the mix. But if we don't have a deeper sense of what we want to achieve and what that vision ultimately is, we're really just kind of going at the seat of, just in whatever direction the wind wants to take us. So I think that is a really wonderful way to bring us back to how we want to step forward.
Yeah, look, I totally agree with you, and you do need to have some sort of a plan, because, and bear in mind too, even if you survive the first so many years, which is the danger period, you still need to know how to transist from a small to like the different stages of and growth and size of small business. So you need to know how to do that. And they all require different methods as well. What you might have done as a micro business, because that's how they all start out with. I mean, they don't start out as big businesses, because every big business started out as a very small business. So as you grow, your needs are going to change. And that's where, if they've got a business plan, it should not be a document that's thrown into the back of your cupboard or somewhere, or your drawer. It should be updated constantly, because at least it gives you you've got a bit of a plan, and you can see where you're going. So yeah, totally agree with that.
So thinking about small businesses in 2020, how are you seeing that they're really creating more value in the world to not only survive as we need to, but also to thrive?
Well, small businesses have always been very, very important throughout in all countries around the world, bearing in mind that, say, 96 to 99.7% of businesses globally are MSMEs, that is made up of micro, small and medium-sized businesses. Now, they're the single largest employer in the private sector. So one of my objectives, of course, is to further create awareness of the importance of the MSMEs, as many of them are seen as being unimportant and irrelevant. Now, during the coronavirus period, I found that many of them did innovate. They began to use online services to sell whatever they are selling, and they've done it very well, actually. Some have not. Some have just done nothing about it. There's also a bit of an issue here too, that in Australia, because our borders have been closed, they're slowly reopening, but business is still not, they're not able to operate at 100% capacity. So even if you've managed to survive so far, you still could be running at a loss. So those businesses are going to see how they survive over the Christmas period. You will find some of them will close, and there will be losses in that area. There's no ifs or maybes there. But others will then, they probably might refinance and continue to grow because people are passionate about their businesses. They've invested usually too much money to begin with, just to throw it away. And I think they've had to think of new ways of doing business and how to, and the wonderful thing, the only good thing, if you can call it a good thing, about the coronavirus is it's made many small businesses look at technology to assist them. And of course, we've had many, many virtual meetings, which of course, pre-coronavirus was almost non-existent. And of course, everyone's doing it now. So there's been a fair bit of innovation, whilst others have tried to survive as best as they can because they don't have many options available to them.
You mentioned about people being passionate about their businesses. How have you seen wonderful humans step up to the challenges in the last 6 months? Have you got any great examples of small businesses or small business owners that have really, supported that notion of kind of transforming their business?
Well, we don't have too many examples at the moment because, as I said, it's been a very, very mixed situation because in Australia we have, as you know, the 7 states, including 2 territories, and the borders have been closed, and many people have been working, a majority have been working from home. Communication hasn't always been as readily, I don't say available, but it hasn't been as forthcoming as it should be. And there are reasons too, because at one stage, for example, the problems that a small business owner had was while they could not operate their businesses because their businesses were closed or had to be closed, schools were closed. So when they were at home, they had to look after the children. So there were all sorts of obstacles in the way of a small business owners. Those that could operate, which were essential services, they did the very best that they can. Now, we're going to be doing a survey about March or April, probably about April of next year, because by then I believe that we will have a clearer indication of where the business community is going. At the moment, I feel it is far too early. It is far too soon to predict what's going to happen because you're going to see figures going up and down and sideways. Christmas is coming on, and as I said, many businesses will look to see whether they achieve sales during that particular period. And again, like South Australia is going, it's only just been announced, it's going into a hard lockdown because it appears it's coming into a second wave. So, and they were one of the very first to have this all contained. Now, whilst the Australian government has done, and the various states have done a wonderful job in keeping people safe and as free as possible from the coronavirus, business has taken a massive hit. That's one of the big problems. But also, at the same time, the government has also lent financial support in various ways by introducing JobKeeper, which if your business complies with the various requirements, it gets subsidies to keep the staff on. The idea was not to let that staff go. They increased money for Job Seeker, which to keep those that did not qualify but still were out of a job. So the government has poured a lot of money, record money, into the economy. So it's very hard. So our situation in Australia is not the same as in some of the other countries of Europe or even the States where they're allowed to operate and continue on, although those countries and other states in the States are also now starting to go into severe lockdown. So they will have the same problems as we did, from an economic point. So small business generally has complied, what I've seen, to the requirements that the government requires you to adhere to if your business is allowed to operate, and I commend them for that. And many have tried to survive and are still trying to survive, but it's still too early to tell what's going to happen.
So, thinking about something that you are truly passionate about, what's a key message that you are championing to the Australian federal government?
Look, this is a great question because when you have a look, what I personally believe is that over the years, um, when organisations put their wish lists into governments to advocate on behalf of their members, I have felt that over the years, a lot of it is what I term band-aid solutions. It doesn't go to the core of the problem. And so what we did at the SBAA, we drafted a document called the Small Business Charter of Australia. It's a fabulous document. First time ever done in Australia, and it has a plan. It is a real plan. It has 10 pillars, such as trade, innovation and entrepreneurship, education and training, industrial relations, and it goes through the list of all the issues, that all the things that relate to a small business. At the centre of that document is the Think Small First principle. In other words, at the time of creating policy, one of the questions, amongst many others, of course, is to ask the question, how will this policy affect a small business? Now, once you start to create better policies, you're going to have better solutions as well, because currently in Australia, generally speaking, it is one policy when they create policies or amend policies, although there's a bit of a shift going in the other way now. But generally speaking, if they create a policy, it is one cap fits all, whether you're a large BHP or the smallest of small business owners, like in the tax arena, you have to follow the same rules, and the same rules apply to everyone regardless of size. Well, that's not a good thing. And so we need to make life as easy as possible, particularly, say, for businesses under, say, 5 years. We need to let them get on their feet. We need to let them to start being productive, and we need to allow them space to do this, because as soon as you become a small business, the costs start coming in, yet your revenue may not, and you've got a very, very poor chance of ever getting on top of anything. So to us, we have been looking at and advocating as part of the charter to also to create various incentives that the governments can give more leniency towards a small business owner, especially, as I said, those that are under 5 years of age, because they're the ones that are at most risk of failing.
So, taking the topic a little bit closer to home for you, what are some of the key topics of discussion that are getting consistent airtime in your office at SBAA?
We more or less have the same airtime all the time. What we do, we set up the very first think tank relating to small business in Australia. So there's a committee there. We meet on a regular basis, and that is to do with advocacy. And we draft documents and so forth that gets sent to the Commonwealth government or state governments, depending on what the relevance is. We support our small business owners in times of adversity. There's been a lot of that, of course, at the moment. Especially with some of the government incentives, we've had a lot of requests, a lot of communication from small business owners who have not been able to access that. They've needed our assistance, and they get professional advice, because we have accountants and we have lawyers and we have IR specialists who will provide that advice to them. If they're a member, it's free of charge. But during the coronavirus period, we also did that for people who are non-members as well, because you can't simply turn them away at a time like now. So there's no, and also one of the main areas of discussion is, of course, the organising of our International Small Business Summit to be held on the Gold Coast on the 10th and the 11th of June next year. And I hope to see New Zealand there as well, because this is going to be wonderful. We're setting up like a little mini APEC. And I use that word APEC because people know what APEC is, but this will be one specialising in the interest of small business owners. And can you imagine, what we want to do is to create less obstacles and barriers and make it easier for small business owners to trade between themselves, because currently the export market is still geared predominantly towards big business, but we need to make it more accessible for small business owners, because not everybody wants things in large quantities. Great opportunities for those people who sell their services, because you don't need a lot of capital for that as long as you've got something tangible to offer. So there's a lot of work being organised in that area. We do a lot of virtual meetings and a lot of interviews, and I'm also being interviewed on other international platforms as well relating to small business. So it's a very, very busy period. We also have an e-newsletter, for example, that goes out, and we communicate with all of our members who are on our database as to what's taking shape. So there's a lot of work that takes place there. That's our e-news, and it goes out it's once a month, but we normally send it out many more times depending on what the content requires. So we're very, very fully engaged, but there's no, if I had to say what's one single topic, I think we're working on a whole lot of things at the same time.
Like every good small business,
we've got to be
on lots of things at the same time.
Multitasking.
Absolutely. So thinking about one of your key projects in partnership with the Australian government focused on the digital champions, and really that the digital champions to thrive in the digital economy. Can you share more about that partnership and how that all works?
Yes, look, that's a great project, and the government has to be commended for that. We have a 2-year contract, and we've done 18 months of that already. And up until the coronavirus, we were doing physical events where people registered and they attended free of charge. And because during the coronavirus period, we've been doing virtual ones, which has worked very, very well. And so because people can log in from all over, Australia and so forth. Now, with that type of training, we cover all sorts of aspects: social media, cyber security, websites. There's a whole range of things. Advice on software, for example, because every business requires special software maybe related to their business and so forth. And even simple things like social media, you'd be really surprised how many business owners don't understand what they need to do. Not all of them are content writers, because content writing is very important. So they were getting all of this advice free of charge of how to do these things, of how to engage their staff if they wanted their staff to do it. But best of all was, once they attended these workshops, if they wanted clarification or further information or even mentoring, they could then approach directly to our presenters, who are all trusted advisors. They're listed on our website, and they would be able to get this information free of charge. So we've been doing our bit, but there's a long, long way still to go, unfortunately.
So if you had to pick the top 3 digital technology needs that Australian businesses and small businesses particularly that they need to adopt to really thrive and survive the next stages of the business cycle, what would those 3 be?
Well, I think this is a very tricky question, because all businesses have different requirements, but generally speaking, I would say, and research backs up what I'm about to say too, I think that one of the most important areas is a website, something we all take for granted. But you'd be surprised what a large percentage of websites are not, for example, mobile compatible. Very simple thing. It's been out for a while. It's a requirement, but they're not. Other things to do with a website is that the small business owners need to embrace their websites, not just as an afterthought, okay, yes, I've got a website. It needs to be looked at as the window to their shop front online. So you need to have the very, very best website you can afford. It needs to have great content in it. It needs to be interesting. It needs to have contact details. You'd be surprised of how many websites you go to, and you might have the little frames, like contact us, no phone numbers. And I find in a lot of cases, they just don't work. So you need to have a really good, responsive, interesting website. You need to spend a bit of time and effort in this area, and a little bit of money if necessary. The other thing would be, in Australia, business owners need to be ATO compliance, because this is where a lot of them missed out on financial support from the government during the coronavirus. They need to be, for example, if you employ people in Australia, you need to be registered with what they term single touch payroll, which is software that it links your business to the ATO. And of course, the ATO can keep an eye out, whether you're paying your staff, their super and things like that, whether you're compliant. Although a lot of people think this is a great intrusion, personally, I think it's a good way of making a small business comply and be a professional small business, rather than having things in the back of their head, like information in the back of their heads or on a spreadsheet or something like that. So you need to go digital in that area because that has benefits as well. And the other thing would be to look at what software could improve my business, because again, research shows that if you've got the right technology, and I can't name it because, as I said, every business is different, and there are different types of businesses, but if you've got the right technology, that can help the bottom line as far as profits go. This has been researched very, very thoroughly, and it is the general thing, and the world is going digital. I mean, you can't escape it. So you need to be this is where small business owners need to upskill and upgrade and to be competitive. So they would be the three areas.
Well, thank you, Anne, so much for sharing your wealth of knowledge and your wonderful 30 years of history of working in the business world, and particularly your lens and focus on small business.
Thank you very much, and it's been a pleasure.
For more information on TradeSquare, head to www.tradesquare.com.au and support Australian business economic recovery and growth with a collaborative approach to the future of business.